Wild card, schmild card. We don't need the NFL. We got a 6-game NBA slate right in front of us today. We're going to do what we always do here on the Splash Play NBA channel. We're going to compare my projections to one of the industry leaders at Stokastic. We'll look at their ownership data as well. We're going to sim some lineups with their DFS sim tool. We're going to see some prop betting markets with our friends at Unabated as well to find you the must plays in prop betting and NBA DFS today. Let's get into it. Of course, we got to start with all the Q tag guys. I should pull up this tweet first automatically every single time. Questionable tags right now on John Morant, Jalen Brunson, two key ones there for both the Grizzlies and the Knicks, respectively. For John Morant, a little bit of a downgrade for him. So expect him not to go, I think, right now, though he is in the projection set. Jalen Brunson Q tag all day, so we'll see if he goes. Huge weekend performance for him and Karl-Anthony Towns, both guys putting up over 60 fantasy points last time out. So key players to know on this slate for sure. Draymond Green at number 3, another guy who was a downgrade midday, wasn't present at shoot-around with the latest reports. If he weren't out, he would join Jonathan Kuminga being out, would join Brandon Pajemski being out. Andrew Wiggins back in after a few personal lapses, though. So Green, key player to watch right now, looked like he'd be chalky this morning as well. But obviously, if he's not playing, he won't be chalky and will, in fact, open up more value. Manuel quickly, a Q tag on him, given his Q last name. How ironic is that? Ha 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 ha. How we laugh here on this channel. Manuel quickly, though, if he were out, would open up more minutes for RJ Barrett, more opportunity for Barrett and Barnes in particular. Quickly himself, though, clearly the third banana there in terms of usage, in terms of assist rate, in terms of time possessing the ball and all that. So his absence maybe doesn't matter. Well, it matters. It does matter. And Jeremy Sohan, Q tag on him. Probable. The two Lakers, after the rescheduling of games for the Clippers and the Lakers, they're both going. And also, we're going to have apparently Kawhi Leonard going as well. Check the chats as well here. Appreciate the kind words. Effect MD, positive vibes. We got some alohas here. There we go. And nothing else of note. There we go. All right. So this is how we're looking right now for this slate. And let's see. Here we go. Funny how FanDuel cut off the late games. The DK did not. Yeah, well, FanDuel, yes, is all year long and playing longer slates with all the late games on them. And today, yeah, DK's got a 6-game slate and FanDuel has a 4-gamer of the 2 LA games cut off. So I would guess they probably did think they might have gotten rescheduled again. / FanDuel is probably just a little bit lazier. I think they're both lazy sometimes, but FanDuel, I would say historically, does have the track record for laziness even more. Top projected players right now, though, according to my data, number one on the slate might be a bit of a shocker here. The highest price guy is not my highest projected guy. It is, in fact, Cade Cunningham, 53.8 for me. No Jaden Ivey. Once again, here, it's going to be the case every day, obviously. But to me, Cade Cunningham's price tag hasn't fully caught up with what the situation is for him. He's been playing at a pace overall without Cade Ivey, about 1.46 fantasy points a minute, 33% usage, about a 46% assist rate. For Cade Cunningham, just becomes one of these superstar players without having that other guy in the backcourt. Takes a lot of usage away. So Cade Cunningham, my top guy here, just a little bit ahead of AD, a little bit ahead of Karl-Anthony Towns, and substantially ahead of Wemby, about 3 points higher for me. This is my projection, of course, though. So keep in mind, if you're going to default to Stochastics, they would have AD, Anthony Davis being the highest projected guy. They'd have Wemby about 0.1 behind that, Cade Cunningham behind those two guys. I flip it. Obviously, if my projections naturally make me more unique, it's what I'm willing to do because that's what has led me to success in the past. So for here, Cade Cunningham, the field will be playing him 8%. I'm getting him at 27. So Cade Cunningham, there we go. Left a good episode of On Call for the Spags. I don't know what that is, but thank you for leaving whatever you left behind to be here. Of course, I do appreciate it. Anthony Davis, my number 2 projected guy here, 53.6 fantasy points, pretty much even with Stokastic at 53.4. Field to be playing AD about 18% of the time. I got him at 17% of my top 150 lineups. A top play here, we have seen centers go into matches with Wembanyama and get destroyed. That is something that's happened. DVP-wise, obviously, we don't like DVP stats too much here. Don't care that much about it, with the Vegas total being where it is, the match being where it is, the minutes being where it is for Anthony Davis. I'll defer to that always, and the projection makes him look good. The fact that I am getting him with the field, I'm not taking a big stand here either way, but I am taking a big stand on Karl-Anthony Towns. Towns, I have 53.5 fantasy points. Stochastic today has been 48.6. Towns, obviously, a little bit point chasing here with him having the big outlier day lately. But Towns, one of those guys all year long for the most part in certain matchups, get him higher projected than Stokastic. Worst case to me is I'm projected flat with the field on Towns today. I'm about 5 points higher. So Towns, if you want to ride with me, I have 30% ownership in my top 150. If you want to fade me, the field's going to play him 10% of the time, and that's completely reasonable given how highly I have Towns projected today. Straight up, I have Towns and AD, both centers ahead of Wembanyama. So that's something today I will be not even unique with because I have him none at all in my top 150. Fields only playing Wemby in about 5.5% of lineups. So Wemby, to me, as I've made the case a few times on here, when you have Sohan, when you have the sell-in, you have Chris Paul in, you have the lineup kind of at full strength, a little bit hard for me to love Wemby, even Keldon Johnson. You have all the guys in. Wemby gives up enough usage to all those guys throughout. A little bit of a harder play for me to get to normally. That said, still over 50 fantasy points. He could still get there, and he's the lowest owned out of all these top guys, but I'd rather have Cade at his price tag. I'd rather have Towns at similarly low ownership, similar price tag as well to Cade. I'd rather have those guys, maybe get two of them in, as opposed to paying all the way up for Wemby's. He's not Jokic to me. He's not one of those guys I get paying up all the time for. But really, your main case to pay up for him here is that he's low owned, and that can be enough to win you a tournament. So Wemby, if you want to pay up, you can get there. I am not there today, though. LeBron, the biggest beneficiary overall of not having D'Angelo Russell in the lineup. His rates take a pretty big jump up, averages 1.4 fantasy points a minute in court time this year without Russell. Obviously, there's no Russell anymore. It's going to be the case for the rest of the year for him, and then they'll trade for somebody else maybe. That'll upset the rates a little bit. LeBron, 31% usage without Russell, 47% assist rate. The assist rate being the main thing he gains there, and routes being that 1.4 fantasy point minute guy, which actually put him right neck and neck with AD. LeBron being 9,500, another strong play here. I like this $9,500 range, really the 9K range up to 10.5. And Harden, too, I've highly projected. So really the main thing for me is I'm getting some of the cheaper guys, not getting Wemby at all. I'm getting some of the higher dollar guys, but not the highest dollar guy in Wemby. So kind of interesting balanced ownership here for me naturally. The only thing I didn't get was Wemby. Happy with LeBron exposure. A quarter of my lineups, about 26% of the field's lineups, going to be on LeBron as well. Getting Şengün, 29% sim ownership for me in my top 150. Grizzlies Fields 13. I will say for Şengün, one thing that jumped out in court time without Jabari Smith and also without Tari Eason doubtful today. Jabari Smith's going to be out for a few more weeks. Şengün's been a really high usage player. Really, I always call him mini Jokic, or even more mini Jokic with those guys out. It is one thing that on this slate, I didn't give him the big rate boost. It's kind of naturally what I'm getting. But him being so good with those guys off, I think is part of why Amin Thompson failed his shock recently as well. And he's going to get the similar opportunity. So if Şengün fails, Amin Thompson probably a better day because he rips some more rebounds, got a little more usage and all that. But if Şengün succeeds, Thompson fails. So the fact that I'm getting more Şengün ownership here and going to get less Amin Thompson kind of goes naturally here for me and works out and give me kind of a unique flair. Because Amin Thompson's chalky again. Looks like about a third of the field will be playing him. I'm up on Şengün, low on Thompson. And I think there's a case to be made where if I did juke Şengün's rates to look like what they would look like normally without Jabari Smith and without Tari Eason on the court, he would be like a play I couldn't get away from. He would have been about 53 or so fantasy points. I'm set on keeping him here where I could get him a good amount, get him more than the field. But I think Şengün, there's a case to really load up on him again today. Match versus Memphis, he just crushed recently. Obviously, it's not the reason why we're doing it, but he well-priced at 9,100, and the rates too. Without those two guys, just without Eason and without Jabari Smith, to take enough away peripherally and also take enough usage-wise, it does seem to flow to Şengün in the sample size that I had. But I would have a really crazy stand on him projection-wise if I did give him those rates. So just keep that in mind here. But I would make the case I'm going to get more Şengün naturally here without having to juke the projection. Or manually, rather, is a better way to say that. James Harden, you have Kawhi coming back in. Harden's getting priced down. Same thing for Norman Powell. Same thing for Zubac. Because of the fact Kawhi is back in the mix, the issue for Kawhi is he's playing low 20 minutes right now. Also been out a few games. So for James Harden, I'm at 45.3 fantasy points. Stokastic has been 42.7. If I had to guess, they probably knocked his rates down a little bit to reflect Kawhi being in. But if Kawhi's only going to be on the court for 20 minutes, I don't know that matters that much. So for James Harden, 25% ownership for the field. I got him at 45%. Another guy at 8,300 looking pretty good. What do I think about Brooks going back to Memphis? I don't think I have a strong stand either way on him. And obviously, revenge stuff, I couldn't care else about. It's also not going back to Memphis. He's playing them in Houston. Field's going to play him about 13%. I have a rounded up 13%. So no real feeling for Brooks. I have him 0.75 fantasy points a minute today. He's a player, not really a player I care too much about. Anything else to note here? Steph Curry would look a little bit better without Draymond Green in, I guess, theoretically. One thing I noted with Curry, which surprised me, and I thought about giving him a rate doc for it, his usage and his assist rate both are down when Kuminga and who's the other one missing? And Podziemski are off the court. Wiggins being back in too. Wiggins gets a little bit of a rate boost with those guys out, which might be part of it. But Curry, I don't think it's a great play tonight. I'm not sold on him. 8,800 though, 12% own. I get being there. I got 10% of my own. yeah, I think for Curry, it was weird to me that he would be, and it's like enough of a court sample size as well, time on the court, where like, I don't get why his rates would be lower, but they are. Like he was at like a 27% usage rate, which is down about 8% is from where he is in some other configurations. A little bit odd that they would go down with the guys on the wing, but sometimes it just happens when you move your rotations around to a different formation of guys that are going to be on the court. Anthony Edwards, another guy to highlight real fast. I got very little of him, but he is playing Washington. I've had Ant projected lowly kind of this entire year because of having Julius Randle back in, another high usage guy who plays a lot of court time with him. That said, for Ant, another play I think you can just kind of hold your nose and get to. My projection's low at 42.6, but he's definitely got a ceiling there playing Washington. But Washington really like a gigantic dog at home today. Washington, a 14.5-point dog at home to Minnesota, which is crazy. Like you don't usually see a spread that high going against the home team. But that just reflects, I mean, Minnesota's got a good defense. Washington does not have a good offense. That's a big part of it as well. But like just an egregiously bad total for that, for Washington at home today. Top values right now. Are we sorting? Yeah, okay. So value right now doesn't look that great. Gobert too cheap for his matchup. So Minnesota in general, too cheap for the matchup. Jaden McDaniels coming up a lot for me. I got him at 60% of my top 150 lineups. Fields at 40%. The big issue right now, if you do play a lot of Minnesota guys, their number one game on the slate. They are, in fact, the only game starting at 7 o'clock, so you'll lose any late swappability you would have if there were better value that open up later on. But Jaden McDaniels playing about 30 minutes a game, playing Washington, it is a little bit more peripheral rich. I get why I'm getting him. I don't love having this big of a stand on a guy I don't really care much for, who's averaging about like 0.75 fantasy points a minute, as Jaden McDaniels is. But he's playing 30 minutes against Washington, so that's why you get him. But 40% for the field, I'm way above that. A little bit uncomfortable, to be honest. Naz Reid, 35% for the field, 48% for me. Projection pretty flat with Stokastic, 26.9 for me, compared to 26.4 for them. About 25 minutes. He's playing Washington, same situation as McDaniels. Legit, like all the Minnesota guys look good because Washington's a faster paced team. It's a really high total. Defensively, they give up some turnovers, all that. So like basically for Washington, like they're just a perfect storm here. And Minnesota is not priced, short rotation normally anyway. They're not priced for the combo of short rotation plus playing Washington. If I aren't that high on the two value guys, who your pivots tonight be? I wouldn't have pivots. Like I'm going to play them because they're here. Like there's a difference between like value plays I'm excited by and value plays you have to play via necessity on the slate. There aren't like secret plays I have here. I play whoever I'm getting, based on the value metrics. If anything, I actually get these guys more directly because a lot of the times lately I'm just running stuff through the solver and not even running a sim on top of that. Because again, my projections are unique enough and I have enough of an eye to tell like, all right, this is like a good lineup to play. This one wouldn't be. That said, like there isn't another pivot. It's just you play the cheap guys or you play a more balanced lineup is really all it would be. And I like the 10K guys enough, the 9K guys. I like them all enough here that you're going to have to play these value guys if you want to play the higher dollar options, even if you're not paying for Wemby. You're not paying for Wemby. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, again, same thing here. Not a great play, but the value at 3,300, playing 20 minutes, playing Washington. I'm getting him at 27%, Fields at 13.5. If better value opens up, I will get these guys less. But for right now, because of the matchup in total for Minnesota, you're going to get a lot of Timberwolves. So it just doesn't matter if they're good value or not. James Harden, 45% for me. Fields at 25. Talked about that already. Still great as a top value for me, though, with that price tag at 8,300. This Kawhi is not playing enough minutes. And Kawhi, too. I gave Kawhi his old rates, like where he's been going back to last year. He's averaging about 0.88 fantasy points a minute this year. Like he's playing like the ghost of Kawhi Leonard currently. And I'm sure, dealing with the fire stuff, being away, having to deal with his family, like whatever the case may be for Kawhi. I don't think you're getting Kawhi suddenly going nuts here in 20 minutes that he's going to be projected to play today. Dante DiVincenzo, another part of that Minnesota value. He is at least technically the starting point guard. 42% for me in my top 150 compared to 27% for the field. Projects a little bit lower for me than Stokastic. Actually, no, a little bit higher. 29.5 compared to 28.9. But with the 29 minutes he's getting, he looks like a pretty solid play at 5,400. Isaiah Stewart, again, there isn't great value. He's 3,400. He's projected to play 30 minutes. 18.7 fantasy points for me, 17.2 for Stokastic. Not a big stand there, but 11% is value. These are your value plays in the day. Mike Conley, who's no longer a starter, playing 20 minutes. He's going to be played by about 23% of the field. I got him at 22. Trace Jackson Davis, you're going to play a little more stable lineups here. Guys in the 5K range. Maybe you can't afford the pay-up options besides, like one 9K guy. You play Trace Jackson Davis. You play DiVincenzo. Sort of how you'd play it if you wanted to fade the really cheap Timberwolves guys. But, the projection's a projection, so you got what you got. Let's go game by game here. Let's see what we get in this view. You have Minnesota, 118.8 implied points. Washington, 104.3 implied points. And again, before we get into this one, guys, make sure you check out our sponsor, Unabated, down below. Of course, in about 15 minutes, I'll hop to the world of Unabated, show you their conditional NBA projections, how they sim out with betting markets, what are the most plus EV bets right now on prop betting sites, the pick'em sites as well, PrizePicks and Underdog. So stay tuned for that, but go check them out. Of course, they help me put on the show. And people are starting to sign up a little bit more, but please keep doing it. Unabated.com/NBA, promo code SPLASH to get their data and their simulation tools for all the betting markets you'll find out there. Really legit, all of them like in the world. Minnesota, 118.8 implied points. Washington, 104.3 implied points. I feel like we talked enough about Minnesota already, but point is you're going to get a lot of them. I am not getting as much the pay-up options, the star players, which is kind of a flaw in how this looks right now. Randall, a $9K, Randall, a $72 price tag. Edwards, a $9K price tag. A little bit tough projection-wise for me to get to when I could pay a little bit more, get Cade Cunningham, pay a little more, get Şengün. I projected for about 6 more fantasy points than Edwards. But that said, the main thing I always take away from NBA in general, NBA DFS, you can kind of just ignore projection to some extent when you have a team, with a high total like this and a matchup against a team like Washington, where they're gaining about 5 possessions in pace. Team as well that sucks defensively, 119.6 defensive efficiency rating, kind of the blended number between the last year and change. This season weighted more so, but still going back to last season as well for Washington. They're just a bad team. So like for Minnesota here, theoretically, when you're playing a bad team, the guys who benefit the most are your highest dollar guys, the guys who have the most usage, guys with the most assist rate, guys with the most rebounds. That's Anthony Edwards. That's Julius Randle. The issue is like their price for the matchup. So the field's going to play Randle 25% of the time. I never get Randle. And even with this matchup, I would have him at 1.12 fantasy points per minute, which is way higher than the 1.05 Randle's been playing at in terms of his pace per minute this year. Even with him being higher than usual, like I'm not getting him. So if I don't get him, I usually don't go out of my way to do it. I could say that's a flaw in my process. I do allow it to be a thing that makes it more unique. It's helped out in some spots where like Chicago bomb versus Washington a couple weeks ago, maybe even less than that. And like I didn't have those guys because they just didn't get the big enough boost for me relative to the matchup and relative to the team total. But in general, I would just say like if you're going to match the field in Edwards and Randle, that'd be a logical thing to do. It's just they don't project that well. 4.7x. It's not great. It's not great for this kind of matchup, this kind of total. But play them as much as you want. If anything, I'm more likely to be wrong than not in it, but that's just the best way I can explain it based off projections and how they work. Dante DiVincenzo, 42% for me. He's a reasonable price tag here. Getting, again, the same boost. You're playing a high total team, or high pace team, rather. Bad team in a high total game. So you get DiVincenzo a little bit more. You hope he hits the upside a little bit more. I have at 1.01, fantasy points per minute compared to his usual 0.9 pace. Decent usage, decent shooter, not great at anything. Still has an upside, though. We know we've seen him hit in fantasy before, so DiVincenzo, that's the deal there. I'm low on Gobert. Fields going to play 40% Gobert. He's 5,200. I certainly get it. He has not produced as well per minute per 100 possessions this year, and that is what I weight the most. So for Gobert, I'm getting less of it. But really, he's one guy, I think in terms of the mental game of it, how people will play guys off of matchups, like they're going to assume that Gobert gets more blocks versus Washington, gets more rebounds. With how that math works out, though, because I weight every team basically relative to league average. So Washington, if they were to give up 10% more rebounds than average, I would have that impact going to Minnesota equally. Like Gobert would get more rebounds because he's the highest rebounder. Then you get more for Jaden McDaniels. You get more for Randall, etc. Sort of how that my projections would work. Washington's not really giving up more based on my projections, would be my guess, which is why I'm lower on Gobert. He hasn't produced as well this year, and Washington maybe not as big of a boost as it might seem. So I'm at 27 fantasy points compared to 30.5. Feels crazy about this matchup. I'm crazy about a few guys here. Gobert's not one of them. Naz Reid, 35% for the field, 48% for me, getting more of him. He does rebound less well than Gobert, but actually gets some points. Averages about 1 fantasy point per minute compared to Gobert's 0.86 this year. It's a really bad number per minute for Gobert fantasy-wise. That's the other part of it as well. But again, it could be an upside spot for him. Median outcome is always the main thing for NBA. When you are in a matchup versus a team like Washington, you expect it to be a little bit on the higher side of a median outcome. So you can play Gobert, you can play Reid. You play them together because they do play some court time together, but maybe diminishing returns a little bit there. Jaden McDaniels, the hope would be that he gets some stocks, gets some rebounds, gets some easy buckets, some easy corner threes. Not shooting that well in the year at 54% true shooting, not playing that well at 0.74 fantasy points per minute, but with the extra peripherals expect him to get here, at about 0.84 fantasy points per minute today and playing 30 minutes via Stokastic's minutes projection. Conley, not a big stand here for me. He is the backup now, still getting enough minutes, still playing Washington. Same logic there. Nikhil Alexander-Walker, same thing, except I got 2x the field on him at 3,300. Conley seems appropriately owned. Really, these guys play whoever you want. Probably not Leonard Miller, probably not Jalen Clark, probably not your Dillinghams here because I don't even think he's active. So Minnesota, just not a big rotation. You can play whoever you want here, but obviously the highest, a lot of ownership across the board. If better value opens up later on, people are going to be married to Minnesota on the slate. Washington, we can make up some time. Nothing here for me. These guys all look bad. And this is with Brogdon, Saddiq Bey being out. I mean, Saddiq Bey has been out the entire year, so it doesn't really matter. If you got somebody ruled out here, I think we didn't have a Q tag on anybody. So this is probably your rotation. Everybody's mispriced. Kyle Kuzma's been awful. He's probably cheap for where he's played historically, but not cheap for how he's played this year. 0.95 fantasy points per minute is pretty bad. Minnesota, also a tough defense, tough matchup, big pace down. Hard to like Washington really here. And if you're going to pay it for anybody, be Poole, but I can't imagine paying 8K for Poole on the slate. Golden State 117.3 implied points. We got that Q tag on Draymond. Draymond being out would open up a lot of peripherals for pretty much everybody else out there. But really, Golden State, a lot of ownership coming to Wiggins, 27% for the field, 29% for me, 13% Steph Curry, 10% for me. Again, talked about it before. Steph Curry weirdly does shoot less and assist less when you have Kuminga and Podziemski off the court. I don't know why that would be, so I didn't change his rates for it, but it stood out as an oddity that I'm not sure why it would be necessarily, besides maybe other combos around him taking more shots or not deferring to him quite as much. Not really sure about why that would be. Wiggins, though, looks like your best play to me. Draymond Green, I'm really low on. If he's out, it won't affect me too much, besides getting more of the other guys. Trace Jackson-Davis, you would get more of if Draymond were out, I think. But as it is right now, 23% ownership for me. My top 150. Fields at 26%. Dennis Schroeder getting more of him. I'm not really sure why. I think the price tag at 5,500 is low enough, playing 30 minutes. He's been a worse version of himself in Brooklyn. He also hasn't really spiked an upside, even in games where Steph Curry was out, where Draymond is out. But if Draymond were out, I'd probably get like a stupid amount of Schroeder, I guess, because I'm getting 30% of him right now compared to the Fields 19. I don't love that stand, but it's coming up. Projections are projections, as kind of always going to be the case. Toronto, we got that Q tag on quickly. If he goes, though, none of these guys look that good. RJ Barrett's price tag, I think, is low enough at 8,200. I have Barrett and Barnes projected exactly the same, 41.4 compared to 41.4, based on their rates for the season. That said, Barnes has spiked an upside more lately. Barrett's keeping his usage. He's staying steady at about 30% usage on the year. Both guys, I think, playable. They're averaging about 1.2 fantasy points per minute each. So to me, they're the same play, but price-wise, certainly projection-wise for Stokastic, there is a lean towards Scotty Barnes overall. Quickly, I don't think playable at his price tag, playing 30 minutes, 6,700. Jakob Poeltl, cheap enough at 6,600. Not really great values on the slate. So again, if in a more balanced build, you pay down, kind of don't spike too much. In terms of the salary, a guy like Poeltl at 6,600, not that bad. Yeah, I mentioned that before. Draymond wasn't at shoot around, so expect him not to go, but shoot around hasn't been a perfect indicator this year. But, midday downgrade, not a shoot around. Your assumption probably be that he wouldn't go. Grady Dick, I got 14% of him. Fields at 7.5. He's playing enough minutes. He certainly could knock down some threes. No real stand for me with Grady Dick besides the fact that he's 4,500 and plays shooting guard. Detroit, 107.5 implied points. And New York, 115 implied points on their side. Not a great total for Detroit. That said, I'm getting a lot of Cade Cunningham for the reasons I outlined before. Jaden Ivey being out just makes the rates jump up for Cade, making him average about 1.5 fantasy points a minute, which is flat what I've had out today when accounting for the matchup and the Vegas total. A little bit of a pace down technically for Detroit, with the Knicks playing at about a 97 pace. But still, Detroit, to me, Cade Cunningham isn't really an isolated enough role in this offense, being the driver of everything, that I would go to him. I think especially if this game's competitive in the fourth quarter, like Cade, when games get tight, Cade takes every possession off the court. Like in the fourth quarter, like nobody else gets the ball. And that's sort of where you'd want this game to be. With it being only a 7.5 point spread, you'd expect to be competitive throughout. If you should ever predict a blowout in the NBA, which you probably shouldn't generally, maybe in that Minnesota-Washington game, but even that probably shouldn't. Tobias Harris, I have not been following him on the way up. 25.8 is my projection. Stokastic has been 26.1. His rates don't really go up in court time without Jaden Ivey, which is odd. I don't know why he wouldn't gain some usage based on a big enough sample size now. He's averaged in court time without Ivey 0.92 fantasy points a minute. Today I'd have him at 0.81, accounting for the matchup with the Knicks and that team total they have. So it's hard for me to make a case for Tobias Harris, other than the fact that I would have him a little bit better projected based on what he's done without Jaden Ivey, about 1,000 possessions, 0.92 fantasy points per minute. But he's low here for me, and that's with him having the same rates that you would have in court time without Ivy. So I don't know why he would look like a bad play for me, really, besides the fact that he's not very good. Malik Beasley, the biggest beneficiary besides Cade in court time without Ivy, gets more minutes, gets more usage. I'm at 29.6 today. Stokastic has been at 25, still only getting in about 3% of my lineups. The field's at 1 for Malik Beasley. Price tags come up for him too. He's now just shy of a 6K salary. Jalen Duren, field likes him more than I do, 7%. I got him at 5. He's been kind of dog shit this year, so a play I don't really care that much about. Isaiah Stewart, 3,400, no value on the slate. You get a backup center, produces well per minute. It's always a DFS little wrinkle to have in NBA. And that's basically that for Detroit. New York, I like Karl-Anthony Towns producing. I'm really loftily projected today, 1.6 fantasy points a minute. With his rates being where they are in the year, he's been great. He's been my favorite Nick. I've touted him enough times here. Going against Detroit, sometimes you see Jalen Duren get up for things a little bit more and upset the opposing center, especially rebounding-wise. But Towns has been so good on the year. I would like him here, and obviously like him even more if you get Jalen Brunson out. If Brunson is out, Cam Payne, I guess, might start. Deuce McBride, we have had the fake start before when you have Brunson out, but certainly more minutes to go around for McBride. Brunson, Josh Hart would look closer to playable if you got Brunson out. Towns, I think, would look like a smash play. He already does for me as it is. Everybody would look a little bit better, though, if Brunson came out, and really the minutes opening up for McBride and Payne would put them in play in a way that they're not right now. Memphis, absolutely nothing here. If John Morant gets ruled out, they can go to Desmond Bane a little bit more. Jaren Jackson still probably a tough price tag at 9,200, but Memphis just not looking good overall. Santi Aldama, borderline playable at 4,500, playing 21 minutes a game right now. Coming back from his injury, he kind of lost his spot in the rotation a little bit. Not a priority play for me, but he is a decent value. 8% of my top 150 lineups in the field's at 5% Aldama. Really no big stands here. Houston is my big anti-stand, so I'm low on everybody here besides Şengün. Low on Amin Thompson, 28% for the field. I got him in 3%. Low on Fred VanVleet, 11% for me, 22% for the field. Low on Jalen Green, 10% for me, 27% for the field. Dylan Brooks, I'm even pretty close to it, a little bit low on him, but 13% rounded up for me, 13% rounded down for the field. Şengün's the big stand. He really does jump up, and I did not kick his rates up very much. Just let him be what they are for court time this year, and how he's played, waiting the season a little bit more. I think Şengün's a smash. So if Şengün does smash, he pulls from Thompson and VanVleet and Jalen Green to a lesser extent. If Şengün doesn't smash, then the chalk probably hit and I failed. So if you're going to play these guys, more power to you. I'm not getting there naturally, and I'm certainly not going to goose the rates for guys like Amin Thompson, who's kind of a low usage guy. Plays a ton of minutes, like can play upwards of 40 minutes, but if he doesn't grab 15 rebounds, like he's not getting there, and I don't think he's meant to be grabbing 15 rebounds every time out. So, yeah, this is going to be one of the spots to probably decide my slate. And look, Şengün just killed Memphis, which I think he put up just shy of 60 fantasy points. Not that that matters, but like he did just destroy these guys. Now he's another high total spot. People are kind of going to the same plays and fading Şengün again. I don't know why that's like, we legit just did this and it worked out with Şengün's way, but we'll see what happens. San Antonio, 108.5 implied points. Lakers, 112. You want to fade me most directly today? The best way to do is probably play Wembanyama, who's not getting any exposure to. Fields at 5.5%. You have no Jokic on the slate, no Giannis, no Luka, no none of the other, no even SGA. So if you're paying up for Cade Cunningham, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that for Şengün. I'm going to do it for Towns. I'm going to do it for AD. I'm doing it all over Wemby here today. So Wemby, Stokastic has a 53.3. I'm at 50.5. Maybe he gets some blocks going against AD. Maybe the spot against LA, marquee matchup for sure. In terms of the guy trying to show up a little bit, maybe he does it. I don't know. I'm at 1.5 fantasy points minute today, though. Whenever the Spurs are at full strength, I just get Wemby less, and I usually don't feel that bad about it. But follow your hearts. Devin Vassell, 13% for the field. I got him at 6%. A little bit lower projected though for me, but the price tag a little bit high. I think it's 6,200. He's shooting guard, small forward though, playing 31 minutes and change. So Devin Vassell, good enough play for sure. Chris Paul, I got more here, 21% compared to the field's 9. High assist rate for him, 40% assist rate on the year. Certainly that could flow into usage. He's probably just mostly distributing at this point. With his usage rate down under 15% on the season. I'd have him at 1.05 fantasy points per minute here. If I had to guess, Lakers probably allow a little more assist upside here. My projections do weigh that. So I think that's why I'm getting Chris Paul more, and probably why I'm getting Wemby a little bit less as well. So my projections had caught up on Wemby. I was getting Wemby pretty even to Stokastic for a while. In this matchup, I'm not. But I don't think Stokastic data accounts for matchup differentials. They just kind of take Vegas total and then rolling sample size, at least as far as I know. Don't misquote me on it. I don't think they account for anything matchup wise besides the Vegas total being where it is. Whereas I would say I might double count because I count the differential from average the opponent allows in terms of points, in terms of rebounds, in terms of assists. I think in terms of blocks and steals as well. So because of that, my projections come out a little bit different when there is sort of either a disadvantage in terms of those counting stats or an advantage accordingly. Anyway, besides that, no other Spurs really matter. Lakers, 26% LeBron for the field. I got 25%, 17.5% AD. I'm getting him at 17. Austin Reeves, 17 for the field. I got 10. Max Christie, I'm getting a little bit more of. I don't know why. I never liked Max Christie, but probably the salary works at 4K, shooting guard, small forward. Really no big stands here. I think being with the field, the Lakers feels okay. Nice total spot. Again, the team, I would say probably a little bit underpriced still for life without D'Angelo Russell, based on the rates without him compared to the rates this year so far. So as a result, getting these guys here a little bit decent matchup, decent total, but not really, again, the totals here aren't green. So like you're not seeing a killer Vegas matchup overall. And last game on the slate, we'll go to the world of unabated coming up. Miami, 104.5 implied points. Clippers, 111 implied points on their side. Miami, no Jimmy Butler once again. Jaime Jaquez is my big stand here. 32.2 is my projection compared to 27.2 for Stokastic. That said, he's still 6,100 on the DraftKings slate today. So a little bit hard to get there. Still got 11% compared to the field's 3. Jaquez playing big minutes lately. He is playing as much as any of the starters for the most part. Played again in double overtime last week. Played upwards of mid-40s, I guess technically high 40s minutes. So for Jaquez, he's been one of the big winners of Butler not being in there, at least for now. Rozier has just been awful. I have about 21.1 with 30 minutes projected for him. He's played at about a 0.78 pace today. I'd have him at 0.7. 51% true shooting is also bad. He could certainly flip it around a little bit, but I don't know why the field's playing him 9% of the time, besides the fact that he's cheap based upon the brand name, quote unquote, of Terry Rozier. Jovic getting good minutes lately. He and Jaquez both getting a lot of those wing/4 minutes. Jovic, it seems like also taking some Highsmith minutes away, at least sometimes. Highsmith minutes always get jerked around a little bit, but it's been worse lately. Jovic, decent value, 11% of the field playing him. I got 21%. But that's about it for me here. It is like a low-pace spot, not a high total for Miami, as you can see by the red on their total here. So not a lot to love besides the fact they're probably not fully all the way there price-wise because of Jimmy Butler. And Bam Adebayo also got downgraded to questionable, but he's going to try to warm up, and the expectation is he's going to go. So if he were to be out, you might get a Kel Ware start, I guess, or Kel Ware start. I guess they probably want to go big going against Zubac. So I would think you get Ware starting here. And then I don't know who would get the backup center minutes. I guess Jovic, they'd probably trot out for some center, but he's not big enough to really be a center against Zubac. So probably a lot more Kel Ware at 3,300 would be my guess. I mean, he's been good on the year, 1.08 fantasy points a minute. So it actually might matter if he did get Bam out, but I don't expect him to be out because they said they basically think he's going to play. Thoughts on Barnes? None. I'm not a Barnes guy. I got Barnes 1% of lineups, so no, not for me. I know my pal Josh Engelman likes Barnes lately, playing more minutes, but he hasn't produced it all this year. So you have enough guys in now. Like you have Vassell in, you have Sohan in. I don't know why you'd play Barnes when you have those guys in. Jovic could go 5 against Bam, I suppose. Yeah, Bam is not going to really dominate you inside like that. Clippers on their side, 45% sim ownership compared to 25% for James Harden for the Fields ownership. Harden, again, a little bit mispriced, I think, now that you have Kawhi back in, but Kawhi not playing a ton of minutes. Even with Kawhi getting the same rates he had last season, there's so much down compared for where he's playing so far this year, averaging about 0.88 fantasy points per minute. I would say at this point, I'm not a huge believer in James Harden in general, in terms of the upside game to game with Kawhi coming back in, the minutes starts to creep up. But for right now, I think you're getting the sweet spot of Kawhi missing some games again, being away for this family with the wildfire stuff, still being ramped up in competition coming off the knee injuries, and obviously just Kawhi general ramp up stuff that he's going through. I think right now you can't play Kawhi and you can't play Harden at this price tag. It's kind of deflated because of Kawhi. Zubac, already talked about this. I like 80 more. Just please watch just go back. Just watch. I talked about the projections. I talked about this at great length. Zubac, 19% for the top 150 lines for me, 7% for the field. Norman Powell, 24% for me compared to 12% for the field. Derek Jones, 13% compared to 10. I think the Powell and Zubac stands are the most noteworthy. I just don't think these guys are priced correctly now because Kawhi is not the Kawhi I think that they're expecting to be in, playing a full run of minutes coming in. These guys have all fallen a little bit in price tag. Powell was under 7K for like weeks. Now he's at 6,900. Harden was in the 9Ks for weeks, months. Now he's at 8,300. Zubac is at least around the same price tag, but, decent matchup for him as well against Miami. Clippers, I think, are pretty good here in this spot. But that's it for the projection stuff here. Of course, we'll run some DFS sims in a moment. But now it's time to hop to the world of Unabated, guys, and learn a little bit more about their sweet, sweet conditional NBA projections right now. Oh, you got a bunch of data on your screen, guys. That's a courtesy of Unabated. All these charts, all these graphs, all these things before your eyes, you get them for yourself. Doing the dynamic conditional projections. Who's in, who's out. Rule them in, change them around yourself, and get different betting lines and EVs accordingly. Real-time NBA news, well, you can scroll through that. You don't have to go on Elon's hellscape. You can instead just get your NBA lineup alerts through Discord every day from Justin Fan & Co. And you got graphs. Oh, you got graphs. You go up the graph, you go down the graph, you see all sorts of graph-related data. It's so important these days. The kids in school are all talking about graphs. Gen Alpha, Gen Beta, they love graphs. If you don't have graphs in your life, they think you're a bitch.
You know the time is ready.
That's what they say. I don't say that. They say that. Go check it out. Unabated.com. Promo code SPLASH. $30 off per month at Unabated. And peak us. There you go. Peak graphs. Kettle drums. There you go. You're getting all you want. Everybody's ready. Everybody's ready for graphs. All right. Let's sim out some points bets here based on Unabated conditional NBA projections. What we're doing, we're taking Unabated's point projection and then simming it off based off a standard deviation 10,000 times. That allows us to find the most plus EV bets based on Unabated's data on PrizePicks, Underdog, DK, and FanDuel. And Unabated, there's a lot more sportsbooks you can add. I only show you the main ones here that pretty much everybody has access to is sort of the goal. And that should pull in all of our markets pretty nicely. Now we'll resort. And of course, you can see all the Q tag guys here. Like if we wanted to say, oh, bam, he's projected to play, put him in, we could then get all the Heat bets. Same thing for Knicks. Instead, though, we're just getting all the teams that don't have any Q tag players. So nothing for me to over-explain to you guys that I have to worry about. Amin Thompson. Oh, under on Amin Thompson. Fear. Me and Unabated aligned on fading Amin Thompson, at least in this one stat. Under 15.5 points at plus 106 odds on FanDuel. Gets a 12.4% EV for Amin Thompson today. Under 15.5 points. Amin Thompson, though, people are going to play him out the ass in DFS. Dylan Brooks, under for him. Under 15.5 points, minus 120 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook and DK Sportsbook. Looks like the same odds. They both get you 12.3% EV. You can also play Dylan Brooks under 15 points on PrizePicks. They get you 8.4% EV. So Dylan Brooks unders on the menu wherever you can bet it. Not Underdog, though. They pulled their line already. Jalen Green, over 21.5 points, minus 102 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook, gets you 9.6% EV. You can't play it anywhere else and get plus EVs. So Jalen Green, over 21.5, played on FanDuel Sportsbook only. Vika Zubac, 8% EV at minus 110 odds, over 12.5 points on DK Sportsbook. It's not on your pick'em sites, and it's not plus EV on FanDuel. So Vika Zubac only on DK, 8% EV at minus 110 odds. Rebounds. Sim out some rebounds here. A sip of water. And your biggest EV, by the way, guys, is going to be the Q-tag guys, like when a guy gets ruled in immediately. So keep that in mind here. Again, you're seeing sort of one view of things with only accounting for the players where we know the rosters are kind of unaffected by the Q-tags. More EV is definitely here if you're going through and kind of rolling in. Bam Adebayo, I think he's going to play. Jalen Brunson, the moment I know that he's out, marking him out, simming things then. That's sort of what you should be doing for yourself. If you're using Unabated tools and data, and please use it for yourself. This is like getting a taste of something at Costco. Like, yeah, you could fill up at Costco, get all your bets in by having little bite-sized samples. Or you could actually go in and get yourself a gigantic jug of mayo and fuck it. Or you could use it and, whatever. You get the analogy, though. Go get the big jug of mayo and go to Unabated. My ad reads for Unabated grow more refined and sophisticated by the day. Dalton Connect under 2.5 rebounds. People love Dalton Connect, and he's not that good. Under 2.5 rebounds plus 110 odds gets a 24% EV on DK Sportsbook. Amin Thompson over 9 rebounds. Good to go on PrizePicks. 14.5% EV. Not so good on DraftKings Sportsbook. It's still bettable. 10.3% EV for over 9.5 rebounds at plus 100 of Amin Thompson. Rui Hachimura under 4.5 rebounds, minus 118 odds, the standard on PrizePicks, gets you 13.96% EV. Let's call it 14 amongst friends. Close to bettable on DK Sportsbook. You generally want an 8% or higher EV, minus 135 odds on there. Hachimura under 4.5 rebounds at minus 128 odds on FanDuel Sportsbook. Looks the best here, 9.9% EV for FanDuel Sportsbook. I mean, I think the main Costco advice I gave was like, don't just only eat free samples, which if you're going to Costco and you're paying for a membership and you're only eating free samples and you're leaving, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't think it's a stream for you. I would find it to be the lowest of lows. But, I'm sure somebody out there does that. And if you do that, shame on you. Go get a hot dog at the very least. 12.7% EV for Malik Beasley under 2.5 rebounds, plus 120 odds. You can see here that he's projected for more. 2.7 rebounds is actually the projection for Unabated team today for Malik Beasley's rebounds. Because the fact it's plus money, you're basically accounting for that within the projection and when you calculate the EV. And EV, you're kind of confused by the concept of expected value. The expected value of anything is just the win rate times the win amount minus the loss rate times the loss amount. So how often something wins and how often you're winning with it, then subtracting how much you would lose and how often you're expected to lose. So basically here, that's why you're getting this being profitable, even though, the projection's a little bit higher. Median projection is just the median outcome. You're going to be above it 50% of the time, lower 50% of the time. Sort of how that works. So just want to explain that because I feel like if I didn't know, I would be like, oh, why does that look out good? Hey, Malik Beasley, point being under 2.5 rebounds, plus 120, 12.7% EV, and borderline bettable on DK. Good to go on FanDuel as well, under 2.5 at plus 120. I said that, same one. FanDuel one, the one I already read is good. DK, okay, but not quite as good. Amir Coffey, plus 114 on DK Sportsbook, under 2.5 rebounds for him. Amir Coffey gets you 10.1% EV with under 2.5 rebounds line. Not good on PrizePicks and FanDuel, and not good on Underdog either. Ivica Zubac, 9.6% EV for over 12.5 rebounds. That one's good at minus 113 odds on FanDuel. Not quite as good on PrizePicks and Underdog, but you can still bet it. 7.5% EV for Zubac, over 12.5 rebounds. That is a lofty rebound line. No wonder I'm getting him. 8.7% EV on DK as well. DK Sportsbook over 12.5. Zubac, take the over anywhere you can get it, which seems like it's everywhere. And last but not least, Jaden McDaniels, who I will have way too much of a DFS tonight. Unabated wants the under on his rebounds, under 5.5 rebounds, 8.7% EV for Jaden McDaniels. He's no Jaden Daniels, as we've said many times on here. But you can take that bet on PrizePicks, fade him today, under 5.5 rebounds for 8.7% EV. Assists coming up. Let's sim these bad boys out. And guys, if you get value of this content, please just subscribe down below, hit the like button. We're on that slow march now to 1K subs. Been in business here on the channel for about 2 months and change. We're trying to get there as fast as we possibly can. Ideally by the All-Star break, if we get 1,000, that'd be great. But please do that. Subscribe down below, hit the like button, leave a comment. About 60% of people watching these videos aren't subscribed right now, and that's not cool. I'm a mom and pop shop. You don't come into the mom and pop shop, steal stuff, and leave unless you hate mom and pop. But Pop's pretty cool. Pop likes to vibe. Pop reads good books before bedtime, quite literally for my child. Pop also decent hang. Don't steal from Pop. Hit the like button, subscribe. Kyle Kuzma. All right, my sales pitches, again, just try different ones out there, see what works. Kyle Kuzma, under 2.5 assists, minus 115 odds on DK. Actually, it looks like you play this anywhere. Under 2.5 assists, PrizePicks, Underdog, DK. Is it on FanDuel? No, we can't complete all 4. But Kuzma, under 2.5 assists, looking good for your Pick'ems and for DraftKings today. About 14% EV for both. 15 really for DK Sportsbook. Chris Dunn, under 2.5 assists, minus 135 odds on DK Sportsbook. You like it, sub? I'm just one man. That's true. Little sub. Josh Frick really got that in his head once I said it. Yes, for all of that. And Pop Spags. That's oh God. I don't think we need new characters. Under 2.5 assists here for Chris Dunn. Good to go on DK Sportsbook. Not anywhere else. 14.3% EV for Chris Dunn, under 2.5 assists at minus 135 odds. Jalen Green, 12.9% EV for over 2.5 assists on PrizePicks. Not looking good anywhere else, but Jalen Green, play that assist line in your PrizePicks Pick'ems. Cade Cunningham, 11% EV for over 9.5 assists. That's plus 105 odds on DK Sportsbook. Not good to go on the Pick'em sites, and really not a great play on FanDuel either. Ausar Thompson, under 2.5 assists, minus 188. That is so much juice, under 2.5 assists. But under 2.5 assists, minus 188, 10.4% EV. This would be the bet because you have this much juice on it. If somebody were to hold a gun to your head and say, which bet should I take today? The Ausar Thompson, under 2.5 assists, minus 188 would probably be it. If you have a free bet too, use that because that's really high odds going against Ausar Thompson. Anthony Edwards, under 5.5 assists today, minus 145 odds, gets you 8.8% EV on DK Sportsbook, and that is it for assists. And last but not least, PRAs straggling in behind. We'll get them in here. The little spoon in Fantasia coming in the room now. All right. There's a little spoon in Fantasia, right? I'm not imagining that. I don't know. Fantasia, not one of the top of mind movies for me. Not one that Luca makes you watch on repeat, like Cars. You want to ask me about a plot line in Cars? Cars 2 is fucking batshit, by the way. There's a spy story, a spy movie in Cars 2. But you want to ask me about those, I'll know. You ask me about spoons in Fantasia? Hit or miss, hit or miss. Corey Kispert, 24.8% EV under 16.5 PRAs. Good to go on PrizePicks, not on your other sports book. Kispert, though, if you get that under 16.5 PRAs on PrizePicks, looking very good right now. Keyshawn George, under 12.5 PRAs. Everybody's playing for Washington today, so Keyshawn George, Kispert going back down. Not everybody. Brogdon's still out, but Brogdon's just out. I think we're just now in the time of year where Malcolm Brogdon is done, unless he gets traded somewhere that's a contender. But Keyshawn George under 12.5 PRAs, good to go on Underdog, lower on 12.5 PRAs there, 15.3% EV. Simone Fontecchio under 10.5 PRAs, good to go on Underdog, 11.1% EV, not bettable on your regular sports books. Jalen Green, 10.9% EV for over 28.5 PRAs, going against Memphis, definitely supporting the projection play on Jalen Green today. FanDuel Sportsbooks minus 120, the only place to play it, though, for Jalen Green over 28.5 PRAs. Kawhi Leonard over 19.5. I mean, he's going to play about 20 minutes. I honestly still have a tough time with that one, but Unabated giving him a 10.3% EV for Kawhi. Minus 115 odds over 19.5 PRAs. They're saying it's going to go on PrizePicks and Underdog too. I mean, you can get there in 20 minutes for sure. That's that. Cars are your kid's fave too, and I see it stands test of time. He doesn't like Cars 3. Cars 3 where they talk about like analytics for the cars. That's not there. It's the great irony, of course, the thing that I labor over every day for other sports. But yeah, it's look, they're good movies. I'm sure Owen Wilson not touching the franchise. They must have made so much money off it. Like Cars fucking merch stuff, still expensive on all the sites out there. Anyway, yeah, Cars, great stories though. Great fucking sidecar projects on Disney Plus as well. Dalton Connect under 10.5 PRAs, 8.1% EV on PrizePicks and Underdog. Looks like it's non-traditional sports books. And Chris Dunn, if you're just looking for one more in your PrizePicks Pick'em, we probably have enough for you to fill a Pick'em, but this one last in. Chris Dunn under 10.5 PRAs, decent enough on PrizePicks and Underdog. And, you know, you are getting Kawhi back in for some amount of minutes. Otherwise, mostly a full rotation at this point. So taking under on Chris Dunn is not crazy to do. All right, the last step on our journey here, we're going to go to Stokastic. Again, we won the one channel, the one show on the internet that will hop from the shores of Unabated to the world of Stokastic. Same thing with ETR and Stokastic. I bring them all together here because I just want you guys to see the best products and get a read for what it's supposed to look like on a given slate, because that's what I do for myself. And, Stokastic, another great one here. Do encourage you guys, though, if check out the Unabated sticker, $30 off, promo code SPLASH on Unabated, and they directly support the show. They pay me to do shows every day here, so that's please go do that if you appreciate the content here. And Stokastic, similar thing here, affiliate deal with me here where I get half the money you pay to Stokastic. So great way to support the show. Get yourself the best tools and data here. Frankly, if you really want to get unique on a slate, and I'll say it would honestly be the same thing with any product, but like combine Unabated's projections with Stokastic Sims. Combine Stokastic data with Saber Sims. Like do something like that. If you want to find an edge for yourself that isn't like doing projections like I do, or even just wanting to obsessively look at rotations and stuff, something like that is also an edge, even though it's not really sexy. But like, you don't know it's an edge because nobody out there talks about it, and the sites themselves, like SaberSim's not going to tell you, hey, go get Unabated's projections or go get Stokastic projections. Stokastic's not going to tell you, hey, take somebody else's projections over ours. But like, you want to try something different if you're in a rut, just a suggestion. I feel like Puppet Lindquist could do a pretty good wow. Sure. I'm sure he could. Can't always break him out, though. I really only like Puppet Lindquist when Eric's involved. I think that's when Puppet Lindquist needs to be a part of it. If it's just here, he's in the background. He's over my shoulder. You can see if I go full screen. There he is. He's right back there. Can't wait. Oh, here we go. Wait, let's see. Can't touch him, I don't think, from over here. But I can lean all the way back. Oh, I can touch him. Look, boop. Boop his nose. He's there for you. I mean, there's honestly a couple players that have made a lot of money in NFL using, I believe, I don't want to misquote, but I believe using Stokastic Sims and fantasy points projections. I know people have combined. There's one dude whose name it's like R. Miller or something, I think. I think he does that, and he's had a lot of big wins this year. It's like, it's so dumb, but like legit, those little wrinkles sometimes can be something that gives you value that people don't even realize. Anyway, we talked about my sim ownership. Obviously, that's my projection overlaid on a sim. Here's just Stokastic data here. You can see not crazy high ROIs, so maybe not a little more of, I wouldn't say a dupey slate, but really low ROIs to note here. But really, sim ROI is just directionally accurate anyway, so it might not matter. Dennis Schroeder here. Puppet Linguist swallows bananas whole with the peel still on. I don't think so. I don't think he's got a digestive system, for being honest. You could fuck his mouth, but I don't think you can put a banana down there. Dennis Schroeder, Anthony Edwards, Andrew Wiggins, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, Amin Thompson, Derek Jones, Alperen Şengün. So Stokastic gets Şengün and Thompson together. I do feel like they don't play perfectly together, to be honest, but I made my case about that if you want to skim back. I talked about Houston. I think Şengün, basically, the way the rates look and how he produces and has that big fantasy outlier performance, would be him taking away peripherals that Amin Thompson needs to get to, rebound stocks in particular. So that's sort of how that looks for me with Şengün and Thompson in the same lineup, at least. Number 2 RY line for Stokastic. Dante DiVincenzo, Schroeder once again, Jaden McDaniels, LeBron James, Trace Jackson Davis, Austin Reeves, Derek Jones, Alperen Şengün. I have to say, and it's really going to play for you if you watch the NFL channel as well, it really throws me off that there's like a person with Jaden and Daniels in their name. And it's like, and I don't like this guy. It's like, this guy sucks. Why can't he be as good as Jaden Daniels? And I could like them equally, and it won't throw my brain for a loop. But Jaden McDaniels, seemingly chalky for Stokastic as he is for me as well. These top ROI lineups: Steph Curry, Norman Powell, Jaden McDaniels again, Naz Reid, Isaiah Stewart, Fred VanVleet, Draymond Green, Alperen Şengün. So Şengün making it again, more than I would have thought. He's in all top 3. Steph Curry at number 4 again, Dennis Schroeder, Amin Thompson, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, VanVleet, Green, Trace Jackson Davis. So you're kind of seeing here too a little bit less of that Minnesota value. Naz Reid being one of it, Gobert being part of it as well, for sure. But you're not taking like the secondary scoring, secondary wing options like a McDaniels, like even a DiVincenzo, really. So I get what Stokastic is doing here, even though I think I'm playing it differently for the slate. Your number 5 ROI lineup is Steph Curry, Tyler Hero, Amin Thompson, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, Emmanuel Quickley, Derek Jones, Trace Jackson Davis. So pretty evenly balanced builds. You're not really getting super cheap 3K guys in. Like, you're not putting in Nickeil Alexander-Walker just because he's playing 20 minutes. You're still playing really key rotational guys for the most part. So there you go. And you're not paying up for Wembanyama as well at this point. Top ROIs according to Stokastic data. Derek Jones Jr. getting him -4% ROI. Steph Curry -5. Dennis Schroeder -5.4. Rudy Gobert -7. Naz Reid -9.1. Jaden McDaniels -9.3. Those are your highest there. Nobody positive, but still, again, directionally kind of pointing the way they want you to go. Top exposed guys. Rudy Gobert 70% compared to the field's 39. Pretty big stand there. Almost double the Rudy Gobert. Jaden McDaniels 59% compared to the field's 38. So there's a lot more to go around there. Let's see. Naz Reid, 55% exposure compared to 35% for the field. DiVincenzo, 45% compared to 27. So even though, you're getting different combos of the Wolves here, you are still getting a good amount above on really all these guys: McDaniels, Reid, DiVincenzo. Dennis Schroeder here, 39% compared to the field's 20. Trace Jackson Davis, 34% compared to 25. I got to get in the studio for Stokastic. Doing the deeper dive coming up at 5, guys, so stay tuned. 31% leverage on Rudy Gobert, 20% on Naz Reid, 20% on Jaden McDaniels, 18% on DiVincenzo, 18% on Schroeder, 15% on Derek Jones. And your most negative leverage players according to Stokastic. And I'll give you my splash plays to close this out. Julius Randle, -17%. Jalen Green, -13%. About half the exposure for him. Mike Conley, about half the exposure for him as well. -11% leverage. Anthony Edwards, they're low on too. -9% leverage for him. Half the exposure. Dylan Brooks, -9%. They're low on him. And Amin Thompson, -7%. So Stokastic agreeing with me a little bit more than usual, I think, across the board. One more quick run, guys. Please check out the sponsors. I'll give my splash plays in a moment. Underdog, $1,000 in bonus cash. Check them out. Stokastic, 15% off, and that's in perpetuity as well. Best deal they have because it is in perpetuity. 15% off your monthly cost with Stokastic. Unabated, $30 off, promo code SPLASH. Check that out. Again, presenting sponsor of the show. Do that. And that's it. All right, splash plays for the day. I think it's Şengün. I think that's a stand that I'm going to put myself out there a good amount for. Value-wise, it is unfortunately currently McDaniels, Reid, DiVincenzo. I think those three are hard to move away from, even though they don't fill me with joy. In terms of other pay-up options, I would also plant a flag for Towns, for Cade Cunningham, for Şengün, as I mentioned. Şengün's really the big one for me, I think. Harden, too. I'll get to, get him out. That's more than a lineup, but that's going to be definitely a core part of my lineups that I put in tonight. So I hope that does well for you guys. Please make sure to gamble responsibly, guys, even though it is always money time here. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. New episodes here Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. So come back tomorrow for another one. I'll see you guys then. Enjoy your days. Good luck. Bye-bye.